What's up everybody, Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids, and today we're taking a look at this product from Schrade. This is the SCAXE4. This is their Tomahawk, brand new for 2014, and when I was talking to Schrade about some new products for review, I saw this one and thought this is going to grab a lot of people's attention. Very unique item when it comes to what Schrade has put out in the past. This is definitely stepping out of some of the other style axes that they've made, and so I wanted to get my hands on it for review here on Everyday Tactical Vids. Let's talk through some of the specs here. As I mentioned, this is the Schrade Tomahawk. It is 3CR13 stainless steel and it is powder coated. They say it's full tang. What they mean by that is that you have the head here, and this is actually one piece of metal here, and it runs about down to here inside the handle, and then there is more metal that it's welded to that runs the rest through the rest of the handle. So there is metal running from end to end. Generally, when people say full tang, they generally think, one piece of metal from the top all the way to the bottom. I will note, however, that you do have Tomahawks and other axes like this that have, a head here, and then it goes down an inch, and then you just have the handle that's kind of wrapped around it or built around it. That's not the case for this. So you have the head, the metal runs down to about here, and then it's welded to another piece of metal that runs the full length of the Tomahawk. Just to give you a sense on the size, from end to end here, you're talking a little bit over 16 inches from the top to the bottom. And then when it actually comes to the head of the axe, you can see we're looking at about 8 inches. Just to be a little bit more specific here when it comes to the size of the blade, Schrade measures this at 3.3 inches, so this is 3.3, and then the back spike is about 3 inches. So you have about 3 inches, and then an inch here in the middle, and then another 3.3 for the blade. Here you can see the Schrade name in the handle. These are nylon fiber handles, and they say that they're handle slabs, and you can see actually the seam line right down the back there, and then over on this side as well. So you have two pieces that are actually brought together to form the handle, and again you've got the steel here that runs down to about this far into the handle. Down here on the end you can see there is paracord wrapped around the handle, and this extra piece was just kind of hanging loose, so I just tied it off so it didn't get unraveled. But here's what it looks like. And so if you're using this as, say, a survival tomahawk or survival axe, we'll say, you've got this as paracord for grip, but also it could certainly be used, for bow drills, all different types of functions there. And then if you look up here on the handle, there is a little bit of texturing. I wouldn't say this is built necessarily to be held onto. It's not made necessarily for grip. But if you did have to choke way up on the Tomahawk, that is going to give you a little bit more grip, especially if you do have a pair of gloves on while you're choked way up on the Tomahawk. Looking at the head of the SCAXE4 here, you can see obviously this is your cutting edge and your spike. The spike is quite aggressive. Now, looks like it's going to be pretty durable. We'll take it outside and test it. So it's not so small that it's going to snap on you, but it does have quite an aggressive tip there. And then I'll actually compare this in a moment to some of the other axes that I have. But sometimes you have a Tomahawk and the actual blade here is really small, so it's not going to be very good for chopping, let's say, in a wilderness survival or, a camping, a woods situation. But this one does seem to have quite a nice sized blade there when it comes to this end, the business end of the SCAXE4. Here we can see the cutting portions for the blades of the SCAXE2 versus the SCAXE4. The 2 is definitely larger, but not by a lot. And you're going to be getting pluses and minuses depending on what you want out of a tool like this, an axe or a tomahawk. So because the 4 is longer, you're going to be able to really swing that to get a lot more chopping power. But again, the SCAXE2 does have a little bit more size when it comes to the actual length of the cutting portion of the axe head. Another thing worth noting here is you can see there is a lanyard hole at the bottom. If you wanted to take the paracord off, you could just run a straight up lanyard through that hole. Here's the included sheath. It is nylon. You can see that you could run a belt through this portion here if you wanted to, and then you've got your 2 snaps up top. The way you're actually going to put this on and take it off is that you have to run the handle down through here and then out this hole and then get it all the way to the top and then snap it shut. So you can't pop these 2 buttons open and then slide it off this way. It just doesn't actually work that way because of the serious point you have down here on the bottom of the blade. So again, unsnap these 2 buttons like so, and then you're going to run the sheath all the way down the handle and then take the axe out. Here's the sheath in action. You unsnap these two buttons, loosen it up a little bit, and then you're going to slide it down the handle like so, and then off the bottom, and there's the SCAXE4. The last piece of information I'll give you is that it weighs about 2 pounds, and that's pretty much a full rundown of the specs. So let's start the testing. First test we'll put the SCAXE4 through will be to see how the pick actually works when we drive it into some wood. So I'll swing it lightly and then a little bit harder and then even harder than that to see how it actually works penetrating into that piece of wood. So let me zoom in here for this last one, just so you can see up close what that looks like. As you can tell, I mean that's significantly into the wood. I'll take it out and actually measure what that distance is. So right where the edge of my thumb is where that's where the wood was. So we're talking about a little bit over 2 inches with the solid swing that's going to penetrate into something like wood. Certainly you could use, this tip to break up rocks or something like that. It's definitely going to dull the tip in the process, but it is a very aggressive point on the pick end of the head of the SCAXE4. Now we're going to move into some splitting of wood. So here we have a look at the SCAXE4 and the wood that I was able to chop with it. I will tell you that there was some wood I wasn't even able to get through with the SCAXE4 as far as splitting it. I eventually was able to split that wood with a camping axe. So, my opinion is that, again, you could use the SCAXE4 as a general use Tomahawk axe, around camp, things like that, for splitting some smaller pieces of wood. We'll show you what it looks like to do some chopping in a minute, and it'll certainly work in that application. But when it comes to splitting wood, a camp axe that has a wider head, more of a wedge shape as opposed to this tactical tomahawk look, is going to be better overall for an outdoor application. But this still does the job. It does do some cutting, just not as well as some of the other axes that are available, and even in particular from Schrade, the SCAXE2L is one of my favorite camping axes. Now we'll show you how you could use it as a demo tool as I beat up this old pallet. Here's a look at some of the carnage left over after going house on that pallet. I will let you know that I purposely do some of these chopping reviews, like when I did the CRKT Chogan Woods Tomahawk. I didn't have anything underneath the wood I was splitting. I like to beat up on these items to see how they hold up. So a lot of people are just gonna, if they're breaking up a pallet, they're gonna be missing, like I did sometimes, and putting their blade right into the earth. So I want to see, what that does. Is it able to take some of that abuse and keep on working? This one definitely did some damage here. You saw I used both ends. So I would say as a demo tool or a breaching tool, the SCAXE4 is definitely an option to consider. Here's a look at some of the chopping I did with the SCAXE4. There's another angle, and over here. So it gets the job done. Once again, a camping axe is going to be better overall for, you know, this type of chopping if you're out in the woods, bushcrafting, wilderness survival, camping. But it can do the job, so I would call it a multi-use axe at this point. Here's something I did want to note for you guys. The paracord did come off for me as I was using it. I did tie off that little last piece of paracord, but even in the use it started to come off. So you're going to want to make sure it's very secure. This isn't a major issue. It was still comfortable to use just holding on to the actual handle. But when I did have the paracord in, I did feel like it was actually more comfortable. So just make sure you secure that nice and firmly. Make sure it's tied off and it's not going to unravel like this. And be careful when you first get it. You want to put some time in to make sure that you do secure this before you start using it. Back here in the studio now, wrapping up the review of the Schrade SCAXE4. As you can see, I've come right back in from being outside. The blade is still a mess there. I got to clean that up in a second. And also, I did take the paracord off so you could see what the handle looks like. My summary for the SCAXE4 would be this. Schrade has things like the SCAXE2, the SCAXE2L, the SCAXE5. They have a wide variety of axes, tomahawks, things like that. I think each of those individual tools probably do better in their small category, but the SCAXE4 is probably the best overall axe or tomahawk that can be used for a wide variety of applications when it comes to items that Schrade makes. As I mentioned outside, I think the Schrade SCAXE4 is best used as a breaching tool or a demo tool, something in kind of that category. While it can be used for other things, I think it's best suited to that type of application. Here are some of the products I was just speaking about. On your top right, you have the SCAXE2. Your top left, the SCAXE5. In the center, obviously the SCAXE4 that we've been reviewing. And down on the bottom, the SCAXE2L. So if you want a smaller camping axe, up on the top, I would take that one. If you want a smaller demo tool, I would take the 5. If you want a mid-sized or slightly larger axe for camping, bushcraft, things like that, I'd take the 2L. That's going to wrap up our review of the Schrade SCAXE4. Thanks as always for checking out our videos. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Everyday Tactical Vids here on YouTube. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and check us out on Tumblr. Take care.